Alex Show podcast.
Smart Alex Show, baby! Ladies and gentlemen, joining us today is a gentleman who serves as the sports information director for one of the most successful and legendary college volleyball programs in the history of college athletics, the University of Texas Women's Volleyball Program. He also serves as the SID for the baseball team, who just this past season had the Men's Player of the Year in the Hispanic Titanic of the UT baseball program. A consummate professional and hilarious dude who's literally adorned by all his colleagues from all different departments, whether it be analytics, communications, it doesn't matter. It's my honor to host the guy who gave me the opportunity to work within college athletics in the communication space, the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin Rodriguez. What's going on, man?
Wow. I don't think I've ever gotten an introduction like that. So thank you. Thank you. And I think the first thing I got to do is shout out that shirt. Is that the attire for every episode, or is that just for today?
Just for today, man. I've done a couple episodes where I pulled out the UT gear. I actually did one with Cedric a couple weeks back. I pulled out the Longhorn jersey.
Nice.
Another one with a guy who works in the basketball space. So I had the KD, men's hoops jersey. We're balling out.
Yeah.
But I was like, what shirt can I throw on today with Kevin? I got to throw on the button down right here.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, man, you got the beautiful background right there. I love it, dude. Epic stuff.
Yeah, I figure I'm usually, on the other side of this thing. And I thought it'd be fun to sit in front of it today.
Yeah, man. So speaking of that, how did you know that you not only wanted to go into the communication space, but specifically like the sports communication space, like as a sports information director?
Well, I think like for anybody, started just as a kid, right? Just loving sports. I think there was a point where I thought when I was young, I thought I'd play football, right? That's forever, right? I'm going to play professional football because that's what I dreamt of as a kid. And then I played football, played youth football, and it was great. And I was like the biggest kid on every team I played on. And then all of a sudden, one day, I wasn't the biggest kid on the team or any of the teams we played, and it stopped being fun. So I learned pretty quickly on that professional sports was not going to be something I could do. But so I went to college thinking sports broadcasting. That's the kind of route that I went down. I went to Sam Houston State University, and the RTV program there is what attracted me. It's where Dan Rather went to school. I don't know if that's super common knowledge, but it's basically the Dan Rather School of Communication there, which was really interesting to me, and the idea of going into broadcasting. I quickly then, once on campus, realized that being in front of the camera was probably not really where I was going to be either. And so I got this opportunity to start working in the athletic department. There was my freshman year, there was a senior who was like, "Hey, I work over in our sports department. And edit video and work in live production, and if you want to do something like that, I can help get you involved." And so I went over and started working in the athletic department at Sam Houston, and the rest is history, really. I got a taste of what it's like to work in college athletics early on, and that became the goal right then. As an undergraduate, I was like, okay, how can I make a career out of this?
Awesome, man. Awesome. So from wanting to go pro and then realizing pro is not the route, like people can't tell in the screen right now, but Kevin's a tall dude. I can attest to that. Usually the tallest dude almost in every room. And But so you quickly realize like I'm not gonna go to the NFL, but I want to still be involved in sports. So like sports broadcasting is the move, and then you realize that you don't want to be in front of the camera.
Yeah, I enjoyed I enjoyed a certain amount of it, but I it wasn't quite right. I thought I was okay at it, but I couldn't throw on the anchorman voice. I couldn't manufacture the smile. I so it was pretty quick. I did it a couple of years and then realized that maybe being behind the camera or something along those lines was maybe for me. And yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, no, that's it's interesting, man. I mean, it's kind of ironic and funny too now. Like, right now you're in front of the camera, but I don't know, man. I personally enjoy being in front of the camera. I think like, I'm just like a young dude. I studied business and I'm studying sports management in grad school, but it's kind of like one of those things like, you kind of when you're young, you don't know exactly where you want to be. You kind of just try to figure it out as you go, as I'm doing now. But yeah, it's pretty crazy and impressive how sometimes people can completely like drastically switch their voice and like super announcer voice.
For
Um,
sure.
it's just wild. It's very, very impressive. There's a lot of different ways to do the media game. I kind of like this format of like just genuine conversation as opposed to the, very quick spurts of like reading off the teleprompter in that announcer voice. But it's
Yeah,
respect to everybody, man. I think what you guys do as sports information directors is so cool and so slept on, right? Because everyone sees the announcer in front of the camera, everyone hears the color commentators commentating on the game, and they're like, oh my god, Mike Breen, these statistics he rattles off the top of his head, but they don't know there's an entire team behind him handing him those statistics. There's an entire production crew behind the scenes that's giving him all the tools to succeed and look good in the audio and on camera. And I think that's what's so cool and slept on about what you guys do, man. So what would you say an SID does? What is an SID? Talk to us about all that good stuff, man. Because I feel like I said, I feel like it's a very slept on and not so heard of role.
yeah. I mean, it's there's so much to it that is is really almost unbelievable at times. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about it is that I think that I get to be versatile, right? I get to wear a lot of different hats. I I think I'll start with one thing and kind of transition, but I think at the heart, and I didn't realize this in the beginning. I didn't realize this is like at the heart of what I do is getting to tell people stories, right? Is the opportunity to to provide information about these impressive athletes, these coaches, whether, like you said, whether it be statistical or whatever, but also the person they are off the court, the their path to being at the University of Texas or wherever, what struggles they've been through, that have shaped who they are. The opportunity to tell those stories is 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 really what we do. In the ways that we do it, though, is super interesting. I mean, we are we're the statistical gatekeepers, not gatekeepers, I guess. That's probably a negative word. I mean, we're the keepers of the stats. We're the ones that are keeping that historical data, um, so that when you know 30 years from now, you look back and you go, okay, Logan Eggleston at the University of Texas set the ace record, more aces than anybody else in Texas volleyball history. That's a portion of what we do. That was kind of my entry into this was, oh, we keep the records. We're the ones that provide the history. And so that's what I initially started. But again, that's a part of storytelling too, right? Um, we are the ones who are prepping those broadcasters, making sure that when our programs are on ESPN or on Fox or whatever, that those folks have the most information that they could possibly have on our teams, our players, our coaches, so that they can tell their stories and tell them in the best way possible. Um, and then as this thing has evolved, as technology has evolved, um, social media has become a huge part of what we do. And so being on our toes as far as having some photography skills, some video skills, the ability to be kind of quick on our feet with something creative. So I mean that's a huge part of it. And I again I've said it a million times, but a piece of the storytelling to the social media thing that has the biggest thing I think the coolest thing social media is allowed is like a peek behind the scenes, right? Is to get another opportunity to see these people off the court, to see these athletes in their everyday lives, or how they are when they're not competing. So I mean, I don't know that I even answered the question, but
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, like you said, versatile is the perfect word, man, because you guys wear so many hats. It's hard to define it just as to one thing. Like these are my tasks because you guys do so much. But I think at its essence, the beauty of it is storytelling. And I feel like that's what sports
yeah,
is all about, honestly. Like storytelling is
for
what
sure.
drives people to fall in love with sports and teams and athletes and these stories. And I feel like that's at the heart of everything, man, whether it be, some ESPN 30 for 30 doc telling the story of how this athlete came to be or this team came to be, or all the way distilled down to the behind the scenes of the, UT volleyball locker room after celebrating a big W, or just seeing how,
Yeah,
Brian, the SID, like maybe storytelling how a captain is selected or what the journey of the team is behind the scenes. Like I feel like all that is what makes sports, man. Like thinking back to when I was a little kid,
yeah,
like just seeing like the stories back in the days being told of like Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson, and then on into the story of Dirk because I grew up in Dallas, so big Mavs fan. So
yeah.
just like all those things that will make you fall in love with sport, and it's just so wild to me, man. Like when I go work the press conferences on Mondays, and I'm seeing so many things that you guys are doing, whether it's like Bianco actually like running Sark's media availability, like calling on the different journalists and reporters to ask questions versus like you're working in InDesign to create a graphic to put up on social media. All the different things you guys do is just it's wild, man. It's wild. If you could put it into like a day to day, man, like say it's a game day. UT women's volleyball has a game. What's that day like for you?
Yeah, the no in this business, I will say no two days are ever even the same, which is great. Like, it's you can't get bored in this. Always on your toes with something. But but usually a game day at home, like for instance, it's going to start with some social media post, right? We've got to remind everybody and get everybody excited for that event. So again, playing a big piece in social media of just getting everybody ready and getting everybody excited for that event because uh, again, we want to create the best experience and best atmosphere for our team, but also for everybody that comes and attends our event. So starts with that, just making sure everybody remembers, right? Everybody's aware. And then it's kind of the boring stuff. It's getting copies made, getting everything because there's a bunch of stuff that goes into the lead up, right? I will have created created and updated our game notes for that game. So that's a supplement for the broadcasters, for any media covering the event. Um, Big packet of information that has stats, storylines, history, records, all that stuff. I will have put together um, earlier in the week that, again, like the series history. So, for instance, whoever our opponent is, what our record all time is against Baylor. All that information is in there. So again, copies of that, copies of teams' rosters, the other teams' notes, all that sort of stuff. And then it's showing up to the arena. And our team will, so with volleyball specifically, they'll have serve and pass, which is kind of their pre-game practice. So that's usually about it's like shoot around, right? In the NBA, they show up,
Gotcha.
several hours before, and just kind of get their heart rate up, run through, you know, again, the basics, right? Of these are the basic tasks that we have to be successful at, and then run through their scouting report and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of times the broadcasters will come to that serve and pass. So spending time with those announcers, making sure that if they need to talk to coach, getting coach over to chat with them during that serve and pass or before or after, and then just running through those last minute kind of storylines. They'll check on, is everybody healthy, all of those things. Just running through that stuff with those guys, and making sure that they have everything they need for the broadcast.
100%. Would you say, like, because I guess this is kind of how my brain thinks of it, like an SID is in a sense like a liaison between the media and the team, and like the
Yes,
information in the team, and just like the information on every front, right? Like you're providing the necessary stats and information for the coach to better have better insights to how to train the team, how the team's doing, how the players are doing, as well as like you're providing the info to the broadcasters to do their job. Would you say, is that like a good term to describe it, like the liaison between all parties
for
involved
sure,
in sports? Okay.
for sure.
Gotcha.
In an organization like ours at the University of Texas, right? I'm not in any way saying that my role is akin to the assistant coach or the athletic trainer or any of those. I mean, it's not to that level, but there's a real purpose, of being that go between, right? Like the head coach sets the message for the program, right? Sets the tone, the voice, um, and then I get to be the one that helps disseminate that to our media, to the public, all that sort of stuff. Um, like when the head coach sets the voice and the tone, the assistant coaches then disseminate that to the players, right? So it's a similar sort of role, especially in an organization like ours where it's so big and so massive, and um, and you want to have a clear message, and again, every match is broadcast and all that sort of stuff. Being having that liaison, I think, is a extremely important role.
Absolutely, man. I mean, honestly, it's like, so the coach is distilling that culture down to the players through the organization, and then you're essentially pushing that, this, like pushing that same culture out, making sure the media is aware of it, how the program operates. I feel like that's like just paramount, right? Like for not only the specific team, like the volleyball program, but also from like the culture of the whole athletic program of Texas, right? Does that come from somewhere? Like I'm curious as to how, like, you know, the SIDs obviously play a very important role in, media training for coaches, players, etc. Like, where does y'all's training come from? Like, does it come from within the athletic department, higher up, from the AD on down? Like, where does the like general consensus of the culture and perception we want to put out come from? You know what I mean? Does that question kind of make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, I mean, it's usually like just in most organizations, in any organization, right? Top down. Our athletic director, Chris Del Conte, sets um, a, the ideology, the methodology, right, for how Texas athletics operates. And then that goes to the coaches, to the different administrators, and then down to us. And each program is given, the autonomy to kind of tweak as they see fit, right, and set their culture as it specifically relates to Texas volleyball, or specifically to Texas baseball, their culture and how they want to operate. And Chris Del Conte allows them, that autonomy. Like, Steve Sarkisian is establishing a culture that relates to him and of how he wants his program to operate. Same with Jarrett Elliott and David Pierce over at Texas Baseball.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool though. That despite like having not a uniform culture, but like a culture that everyone kind of abides by, but also giving the autonomy to each individual head coach to establish a culture for their specific program over time. So it's pretty cool to see, like, how Sark's program is coming together now 2 years in, and how volleyball
Yep.
throughout the course of the years has their identity, and it's so cool, man. What is it like, like serving as an SID for such a legendary program, man? Like, you and me were talking about it the other day, how volleyball has the best atmosphere of all sports at UT, honestly, and that's that UT has. And I'm not only saying this stuff because I'm like a Longhorn and because I go to Texas, but like just in general, objectively, like Texas is one of the biggest brands in college athletics in the world, one of the most recognizable logos, one of the most recognizable symbols right here in Hookham. Like,
Yeah.
this is like universally very, very respected and known to have great sporting events, whether it be football or basketball. But, volleyball, man, like best atmosphere here at Texas. Like, what is it like working with a program like that, man? Like number one in the country. How different is that than working another program?
Yeah, I mean it's really unbelievable. I'm relatively new to it. You know, the wild thing is, like, Jarrett Elliott, the head coach, is in his 22nd season here, and it's, I mean, he has just been rolling, right? They've had unbelievable success since almost day one. Um, and right now it's 16 straight years of being in the Sweet 16. I mean, it's just like unbelievable year after unbelievable year. And so I've just kind of walked into that, right? Just just show up and get to be a part of it and get to help kind of spread that message. And it's unbelievable. I mean, it is an absolute tribute to Jarrett in creating a consistent culture, an incredible culture, where they clearly care a lot about these individuals, right? Because it there's been no drop off. They recruit at an extremely high level. There's no drop off. They keep bringing in incredible athletes year after year after year, which is one of those things where if you weren't treating people right, word's going to get out, right? You're not going to be able to keep recruiting at that kind of a level over this consistently long of a period of time. So he's created this incredible monster that he just keeps reloading and reloading. And over that time, Jarrett is an incredibly well-rounded person. He is not just a volleyball coach. I really, I feel like he operates more as like the CEO of Texas volleyball. He's got his hands in the marketing, the communications, the fan engagement, and he has pushed for years and years to build the atmosphere and the experience around Texas volleyball. Because yeah, it's another piece of it, right? If the student athletes come here and they're great and they win a lot, but nobody comes and nobody cares, then again, that there might be some dip in that success, right? He wants to keep this excitement around this program at all times. And man, he's built it into something really, really unbelievable. And the people, like the fans, have just bought in. It's an unbelievable atmosphere, incredible. Yeah,
Yeah, no, unbelievable atmosphere. It's just awesome to see that after 22 seasons, all of that has come to fruition. Like, I'm sure he came in with that goal to set the expectations high and create that kind of environment. And it's just cool to see how like a well-rounded dude with good intentions that handles business the right way, treats everyone with respect, is able to over time build such a dominant program and leave such an awesome legacy already. And he's not anywhere near done. So it's just crazy, man. And I feel like especially in college athletics, the atmosphere is very important. Like home court or
yeah,
home advantage is maybe even more important for these younger athletes than people playing in the pros that have already kind of figured out ways how to be more even keeled and tune out a lot of that stuff. When you're
definitely.
18 to 23 years old, it's a different thing. When you're like, it was crazy for me to hear when I was working the UT versus Bama game in September, a future top 10 NFL draft pick at Alabama literally said playing this game at Texas was the loudest game I've ever been a part of, the toughest environment I've ever been a part of. And I had never heard the Texas Stadium like that. So for him to say that and see the level of impact that it drove in making their lives tough on the field, like Bryce Young was having trouble talking to his O line because it was so loud.
Yeah,
Like, that stuff is real. The home court advantage is real, and it's cool to see. Like also Chris Beard, the things they're doing with men's hoops, second year in already having massive success, might
yeah,
be for one next week. But you see the fan engagement, the things that are done, like you said, not only like as a head coach, but as kind of operating as a CEO of your respective sport, doing everything else in
yeah.
addition to coaching. So it's pretty cool to see, man. So you were hitting on earlier, like a lot of the stuff that happens pre-game before the volleyball game actually gets going. What about during game and then post-game to give people an idea of like, all that
Yeah.
goes in? Because it is like a wild amount that goes into it. When you're looking at it from outside of this world.
Yeah. So I during match we have our stat crew. So like the crew that is actually keeping the game stats as it's happening, which in volleyball is mind blowing to me. I honestly I I couldn't keep the stats if I tried. Like it's the fastest, most unbelievable sport, especially when it's played at the level that we play it. Right, um, it's so fast and there's constant action. So overseeing our stat crew, basically, I just having them hired and making sure everything's good. I have a luckily pretty hands off role with that during the matches, but still overseeing it. I run our social in match, so we try to keep it pretty fun, pretty light. Um, it fortunately we're not like in some instances in-game social media for teams is actually like updating fans, right? Making sure that people know, hey, we lead, or hey, we're down, but we're driving, or what in football, or what or hey, we're making a comeback. Most of our matches are televised on ESPN platforms and all that, so we're not necessarily having to keep people up to date, but providing some of that in-game content of clipping a really great play and making sure that highlights out, or making note of an outstanding performance that somebody's having. Like Logan Eggleston has 10 kills now, or um, any of that sort of stuff. So it is some keeping people up to date, but it's more just like highlighting accomplishments and that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of in-game social. And then keeping up with the broadcast. If there's anything noteworthy to provide to the broadcasters of hey, that's a career high for Logan in kills. This is the first time she's ever had 30 kills in a match. Or hey, Asia ONeal has 10 blocks, which is the most in her career, but also ties a program record or something like that. Making sure that broadcasters have that information.
No,
Yeah, so that's during the match. That's all during the match. And then usually with our Longhorn Network broadcasts, they'll do a post-game interview. So making sure that I grab that player to do the post-game interview, just put a headset on and kind of in the moment, adrenaline's still really high going to an interview, which I think those are the best interviews. I know like they can also sometimes be like the worst, right? They can, with again that adrenaline and all that, but we spend so much time with our athletes, and they know the expectations of the program and all that sort of stuff, that I'm never worried about what they're going to say in a post game interview. They're so great.
Yeah, no, I mean,
And
y'all
then
do
after,
an incredible job training the people on what to say. I mean, yeah, I feel like you said, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Luckily, the programs you're an SID for win a lot, so you don't have to worry too much about the negative side of raw emotions in the post-game interviews. But it's cool to see the positive raw emotions, the excitement, the adrenaline going, the passion when you're watching.
absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So right after the LHN interview or whatever the TV, the live post game interview, coach and players go back to the locker room, kind of just debrief shortly, and then it's post game press conference. And usually, we'll take head coach Jarrett and probably two players usually, and they'll just meet with whoever is covering the match. Usually, a couple of writers, like the Austin American Statesman, the student newspaper, and local TVs that are covering the match. So after the post game interviews are done, then it's grabbing the stats, putting them up on the website, making sure that the stats are up to date, and then it's all right. And then it's putting together a quick recap, and sending out that recap to any media like AP that potentially would pick it up, making sure that the final box score is included, so that anybody, newspaper or ESPN Stats and Info or whatever, has that box score, updating it on our website, texassports.com, which again is basically the kind of the digital archive of Texas athletics.
No doubt, man. Yeah, I mean, quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen. You can't tell you're going through on the ground stuff, literally communicating with coaching staff, players, broadcasters, all sorts of media personnel, literally, having people hand deliver, such as like Vid or Abby helping out with hand deliver these statistics out to the different, benches, and then running the social media, making sure everything goes live on the website, sending out, the recap, the storylines, the stats box score to the media. Now I understand when you tell me this whole story, this whole spiel about why, SIDs fall under PR and communications department, because it checks all those boxes. I feel like y'all could even be marketing as well with the social media aspect as well. It's just, y'all wear so many hats, man. It's really impressive. So I guess just a couple last questions before we wrap it up, man, because I know you're in the thick of it, volleyball postseason coming up. But honestly, man, like, sometimes the hours can be long from what you guys have told me in terms of traveling with the team, sometimes traveling around the holidays, not getting to see the family or being gone, several days of the week sometimes, or late night, and not being able to see the spouse or the kids, stuff like that. What keeps you in it, man? What keeps you working this job, working this career? Like how do you stay in it despite the sometimes, sporadic schedule or tough moments?
Well, so I think the first thing, and this is one of those things that I think a lot of people won't necessarily admit, but there is nothing like winning. Nothing compares to winning. And and it's not like I'm out there on the court. It's not like I have coached them or anything like that. But when you get to have a part in their daily lives and um, get to be in any way an influence on how they operate and what they do, to be invested in them and then to see their success. There's just nothing. There's nothing like it. It's an unbelievable adrenaline rush when you pour in the time and energy and hours into the work and just making sure that that these stories are told and then they win. It's the best feeling. It just is. It's the best. So that's a huge part of it. But it's just cool. It's such a that's a cop out, but
That's real
I
though.
work
I
in
mean, that's
sports.
real stuff. It's
I
sometimes.
I mean, like tomorrow with the first round of the NCAA tournament, um, it'll be a 15-hour day, maybe. Probably somewhere between 12 and 15 hours. But you know what? I get to go and watch sports. That's what my job will be, and I'll get to tweet. I mean, like, I, it's it's hard to even like put into words. But
No,
that's what keeps me coming back. And again, the relationships, the time spent with these coaches and athletes. I mean, they're they're the best at what they do, and to get to even just be around them and be a part of their lives is really cool,
no
and
doubt.
rewarding. Yeah,
No, I feel like, there's that saying like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. It kind of goes along with like, you're kind of like the average of the people you hang out around. So I'd imagine for you, right, it's just incredible to be around greatness all the time, great coaches, great athletes that are
absolutely.
themselves to the highest caliber, and in turn you feel like you feel inspired to push yourself to the highest caliber. And like for me, like I've worked a job or jobs that I didn't like before, and worked at an office setting where I kind of just for lack of better words just hated it, honestly. So
Yeah,
it's just very cool, as you said, to at the end of the day, you're watching sports for a job, you're tweeting. Like, who would have thought, years ago there would be decades ago there'd be a thing such as tweeting, and just like that's
right.
you're paid to tweet about the sporting event you're watching. So it's nuts, man, and it's a blessing despite the hard work. So that's very cool to see that you're passionate about it and love it, man. If you were to give out any advice, man, to anyone who wants to go into the communication side of sports, or who maybe wants to be a sports info director, what advice would you give them in terms of how to get there and just the skills and traits that they need to have to be successful at it?
I think the first thing is persistence. Like, I think that it's a hard business to get into, and it can it can be slow starting out, but you just got to persist, right? You just got to keep coming back, and keep showing up, and yeah, it's not an easy business to get into. It's because again, it's sports, right? Everybody wants to do this, or a lot of people want to do this. I mean, and there are challenges, right? Like we've talked about the long hours. I think the reality is in a lot of these positions in communications, the pay is not great. Especially when you're surrounding yourself with coaches and athletes and whatnot that potentially are making a lot of money. So that some of that there are some challenges relating to that. But if you're really into it and you're really passionate about it, show up. Just keep showing up. But I think the most important things I think are like building relationships, just having the ability um, to get to know people, and take an interest in people, being a great communicator, I think that's a huge piece of it. Which is probably, yeah. I mean, you're laughing. It's
It's in
kind
the
of a dumb
name.
thing, but I
No,
know,
no,
but
but it's huge, man. Like it's in the name, but like you don't really realize how much goes into it, how much communication goes into it until you're in there. Like this
right,
is
right,
really communications on every spectrum,
right.
physical, digital, like across different mediums. It's pretty insane to wrap your head around.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I think those are probably the most important. I mean, which again, I don't think I listed any sort of like
Yeah.
something you'd write on a resume or anything, but like those are like those are the skills. I mean,
Skills, man, no doubt. Like you said, persistence, keep coming back, keep showing up. There's a saying I heard recently. I was like trying to get hyped up, like 8 a.m. I was exhausted. I think I threw on like it's Denzel Washington. He was like trying, he's like one of those YouTube videos. They try to like put on all these like Creed fighting scenes with Denzel speaking, but he
hmm
was hang out. If you hang out around the barber shop, sooner or later you're gonna get a haircut. So that can go positive or negative, but I like to think of it in the positive manner. Like hang around, show up, put in work, raise your hand, and eventually good things will come if you stay persistent and believe. But powerful wisdom here. Kevin, I really appreciate your time. If you were to rattle off like some favorite moments from your time working as an SID in college athletics or favorite moments working with baseball or volleyball, what would they be if you were to just rattle them off real quick?
Oh man. I think it's tough to avoid like the wins, right? The big moments like on field, like the first time I got to be a part of a College World Series team with baseball. It's just unbelievable. But I'm trying to remember some of the stories that we've been able to tell over the years. There's one for sure that stands out from last year, that Asia ONeal, who plays volleyball for us, her her daughter, or she is the daughter of Jermaine O'Neal, who well-known NBA player. Yeah. But something really interesting about her, she had two open heart surgeries in her life. One at about 12 or 13 years old, and then a second when she was a redshirt freshman here at Texas. So obviously, like having a couple of open heart surgeries and then still continuing to be an elite athlete. ESPN.com reached out about doing a massive long form feature about Asia, and so last year, ESPN sent out a writer, and to be able to be a part of a story at that level was incredible. The writer is again one of the highest in her business, right? Of sports feature telling. So to work with her and to know how she operates, and I think in general, or I think in total, she did 15 interviews for this story on Asia. So helping to line up all those different interviews. ESPN sent out a photographer. We did a photo shoot with Asia for this story. So it's one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do, and it's one of those things that I feel like can happen at Texas and not necessarily everywhere else. We have this incredible platform where people are knocking down our door to tell stories, right? To tell stories about our athletes at UT. So that is for sure one of the highlights, one of the really cool moments of my career.
Absolutely, man. How did it feel to see that, like read it afterwards once it was done? Like I was really a part of this. Like I've read ESPN, I've watched ESPN since I was a kid, and now I'm like, I played a major part of making this happen. Like, how did that feel?
Yeah, it's as you can imagine, it's one of the coolest feelings. I mean, just to read that story, and again, like it's a story I obviously know really well, and I've heard Asia tell it herself and all that. But but then to be able to read as this writer, sets the scene and goes through all of it, it was really, really cool. Very, very cool experience.
Absolutely, man. That's very cool. I'm sure we could go on for hours with your cool stories, whether it be Hispanic Titanic or other stuff, but we'll leave it for another time, man. Kevin, I know you said storytelling was a huge piece of this, so I'm honored to have been able to tell a small piece of your story, man, a small piece about your career. We appreciate you spreading the wisdom, man, and it was a fun time, man. We'll have to do it another time when you're not busy with the volleyball playoffs coming up. You guys tune in to the women's volleyball playoffs coming up. UT going for it all. You might see Kevin out on the broadcast out there on the court. But strongest beard in the game, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Rodriguez, my friend. It was a good time, bro.
Thanks, Alec. Appreciate you, man.
Such a smart Alex.